Have you ever felt like your mind is just running on a constant loop of constant worry? Or maybe you find yourself constantly replaying old mistakes in your mind, or even missing out on opportunities because you feel that you're always going to fail or you're never going to be good enough? Maybe your mind just amplifies your fears and you have a certain worst case scenario kind of mentality going on in the background all the time. So, what if I told you that much of this so called anxiety comes from distorted thinking patterns known as cognitive distortions? And these are patterns that can actually be changed. Now, I'm not saying don't go seek help for anxiety or anything else, but these are some great things that we as hypnotherapists also assist clients with. So, first, where on earth do these cognitive distortions, these distorted ways of thinking, come from? So, number one, we all have survival instincts, and our brains are designed to search out any kind of threat in order to keep us, the species, humanity, alive. In tune with that, we also have what's called the negativity bias. So, the human brain naturally focuses on negative experiences more so than positive ones as an evolutionary way of keeping us all safe and around here. And then we also have past conditioning, of course. So our past experiences, particularly painful ones, can shape how we see the world. In NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, we call this cognitive mapping, right? How we see the world. And we also have an information overload going on all the time anyway. So this kind of makes our brains create mental shortcuts. So we process this vast amount of information all the time, especially with social media now and all the digital stuff. And to make sense of it, our brains like to take these shortcuts, which sometimes are useful and sometimes help us to learn things. And sometimes they lead to more of a black and white kind of experience. It can lead to overgeneralization. It can even lead to catastrophic interpretations of events. So these are what we're talking about when we talk about cognitive distortions. So we'll talk today about the top 10 cognitive distortions that fuel anxious feelings or anxiety. So, number one is what we already said, all or none thinking, that black or white. This means seeing things as all good or all bad. There's nothing gray, nothing in between. So, if you're not a success, therefore you must be a failure. It can lure you into thinking that this is kind of positive thing because you're striving to be better, etc. But this typically leads to, if you make one single mistake in some kind of project or whatever, then the whole thing gets derailed and you tend to beat yourself up even more. And being around others can be helpful, seeing how they react in certain situations, paying attention to that, being mindful, as well as thinking about how you would treat someone you care about if they were reacting this way, kind of thing. So that mindfulness, kind of compassionate, self-compassion thing. Number two is overgeneralization. So the use of the words never and always, such as saying this is always going to happen to me or that never goes well for me. And I know sometimes we're dramatic and we say this, but if you find yourself constantly doing this, watch out. This generally includes assuming the worst, that worst case scenario. It typically includes having a pattern of negative self talk in your mind and also seeing a pattern from kind of a one time event that allows you to kind of predict that that is what's always going to happen for future events. So, reframing your thoughts is key to overcoming this. And you can really pay attention to your thoughts and catch yourself anytime you are saying always or never in your mind or even out loud, because we do it out loud too. Ask yourself, is this always true? Is this always the case? And just kind of notice, see, what you feel there. You can challenge negative thoughts and then reframe them with positive mantras. For instance, something like, I do give confident speeches when I'm practiced and prepared, or I do well at my job when I'm practiced and calm and prepared, etc. Something like that. The next one we want to talk about is called mental filter. So, a mental filter focuses exclusively on an event and it filters everything else out. So, it sounds positive again in certain ways. It's like, oh, I wish I had that laser focus. Yeah, this is more of, for instance, if you sit down for an interview with your boss about kind of your job performance and he tells you about 10 great things that he's excited about and one negative, you're only focusing upon that negative. So you mentally filter out all the positives. And so your mind is only focused on those negatives. So again, reframing can be quite useful for this, as can journaling. It can help you. I also like EFT or tapping and eye movement therapy, which we've talked about in other kind of mindful Mondays too, to shift quickly out of negative thought patterns. Then we have discounting the positive. So perhaps you can't accept a compliment, or you downplay your work, or maybe you won an award and you say, oh, it was just luck. So again, that's kind of not having the greatest self-confidence or self-acceptance, because we do need to be proud of ourselves, not to have hubris, but we don't want to downplay our positives either. Making gratitude lists is a great way to help out with this distortion. The next one is jumping to conclusions. So we do this by fortune telling and mind reading. I love these words, right? Fortune telling is when we make excuses about what you think is going to unfold as a way of avoiding it. So mind reading is putting words in someone else's mouth or thoughts in their mind, thinking you know what they're going to say or do, just assuming, basically. We know what assume stands for, in a certain situation. So this is one of the ways that our minds do those kind of shortcuts that we talked about to kind of help us out with things, yet it can lead to a lot of miscommunications and not so positive things as well. So pay close attention to feelings, to thoughts, to emotions, and situations where you find yourself jumping to conclusions. Again, practicing mindfulness, journaling, even doing hypnotherapy or breathwork to get to a root cause can be useful as well. Then we have magnification and minimization. So magnification is obviously exaggerating the importance of something, while minimization is the opposite. And these are habits that we do in our minds. And it's necessary to break these habits by first paying attention to them and then challenging your thoughts. And this is only if it's a problem, of course. If you're minimizing everything or maximizing, we all tend to exaggerate once in a while. That's just human nature, too. And then we have emotional reasoning. So, this is an unhelpful thought process where you judge things based upon your emotions. Now, when you're feeling a negative emotion, you believe and you think it's an accurate reflection of your reality, or you have emotions of, say, shame or guilt, and you feel that this is a sign that you're a bad person. So, you're taking your emotions as an overall map, as we say in NLP, of the world, as opposed to realizing that emotions are just truly an accurate reflection of not really anything in the future, but of what we're feeling in the current moment. It's a present moment kind of thing. So, this is a great to kind of discover what might be triggering you, because it's typically a pattern of things that trigger most folks. And again, you can use tapping or EFT, eye movement therapy, hypnotherapy, breathwork. I love all these things, right? Next, we have should statements. So this is saying things like, I should be able to get through this without a mistake, or I must finish this even though I'm not feeling well, kind of things. And this type of cognitive distortion puts an incredible amount of stress and weight upon your shoulders. It's very habitual, and it happens usually without someone really even noticing it. So we want to be cognitive and practice self-acceptance when it comes to change in this area, challenging negative thinking, and we like to say don't should on yourself, basically. And then we have labeling and mislabeling. So making a judgment about yourself or someone else based upon one single behavior is where this comes into play. And this can really negatively affect your self-worth, and it could stem from limiting beliefs from your childhood or something else again. So you can utilize, again, therapy, hypnotherapy, breathwork, anything like that. And then we have personalization and blame, our final one. So we all do play the blame game as well, from time to time anyway, because as humans, we feel the need to kind of blame someone or something when things go wrong, especially if it's a lot wrong, right? And so personalization happens when you take the blame to an extreme level. You might misplace responsibility on someone else, or you might be taking too much responsibility upon yourself. And it can also include taking other people's behavior too personally. So it's important here to remind yourself that the only person that you can really control is your own actions. You can't control the way other people act, think, or really even behave. So taking responsibility for your own actions and having your own level of self-confidence and self-esteem can be quite useful here. Other things that can be helpful, of course, that we haven't necessarily dwelt on too much, is mindful breathing practices. So that's different than the breath work I talk about, which is to get to breakthroughs. So that's exciting breath work, but you can do mindful breathing that we've talked about in the past. You can get outside into nature, grounding, playing soothing music, aromatherapy, moving the body. I especially love yoga therapy. doing a digital detox, eating healthy, making sure you have a good sleep hygiene routine, and of course, spending time with positive friends too. All right, so thank you so much for joining us. If you are watching for the first time, feel free to type any comments or questions you have. If you have a topic you'd like to hear in the future, you can also type that in comments. And if you type the word mindful, I will come back after the broadcast and put a link, which if you follow, you will receive a free hypnotic recording on releasing limiting beliefs, as well as our weekly PDF of cheat sheet of what we cover each week. So have a great Mindful Monday, and thanks so much for being here.